Hello there, and welcome to Breakfast All Day. Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome. Breakfast all day, breakfast all day, breakfast all day. You were all thinking it, so I had to do it. So,
no one was thinking it.
I've been listening to too much Liza today. So we are going to eventually get to the first episode of this FX series, Fosse Verdon. Christy, Alonso, Matt, we're all here. Hello.
Hello.
Ben will join us eventually, but he is at the TCM festival. So it's the three of us for now. We've got a really, really busy show with lots of random crammed stuff to talk about. The big movie of the week is Hellboy, but we will get to Fosse Verdon eventually. And then next week we will do Game of Thrones.
Yes. Yeah.
I've done no preparation for that, and it's going to be awesome.
Apparently, James Corden did a 3-minute recap of the entire series to
Cool.
date.
I will look at that, perhaps.
No, don't.
Don't even bother with that.
Go in
All right,
totally
cool.
cold.
All right. So the opposite.
So really, you've been preparing by not watching it for
all
years.
my life,
Exactly.
since birth.
It's all
so,
led to this.
So
Born
let's
ready.
let us start with Hellboy. This is a reboot of Hellboy, and never have I realized how much I need Guillermo del Toro in my life before this. Matt, please tell us about the reboot of Hellboy.
So David Harbour stars as the title character Hellboy, with Ian McShane as Professor Broom, who starts off with a voiceover where he sounds half in the bag and talking about a witch named Nimue who had been defeated by King Arthur and Merlin and cut up into pieces and put in various boxes. Maybe a reference to boxing, Elena. And so Hellboy comes along, and he, turns out there's a plot to get Nimue back together, and David Harbour is a younger Hellboy who tilts between basically sounding surly and screaming, which is pretty much like what my own 15-year-old does. And this is the movie that you realize, oh God, yes, we do need Guillermo del Toro. It's directed by Neil Marshall, who's done a couple movies I really like, including Descent, which is a great film, and Doomsday, which is awesome trash.
It is fun and
trash.
stupid, yes.
And he's done a couple of Game of Thrones episodes.
Yeah, this movie is crap.
It
It starts out really over the top, and it's kind of like you kind of think like, oh, this is so lurid and so goofy. It's going to be fun because it's kind of like it starts off seeming to know how dopey it's trying to be, but then it stops being fun. And then by the end of it, it's just ugly and nasty. And part of, I think Neil Marshall has he's got two strikes against him because he's following Del Toro after Del Toro has kind of worked out some of the kinks in his filmmaking style with stuff like Mimic and some of the movies he's done. So Del Toro brings to the Hellboy stories an elegance, and there's kind of a romanticism to it.
And an affection for the characters, whether they're good or
Right,
evil. An interest in who they are. That does not exist here.
Yeah, or if it does, like it's trying to get into who Hellboy is, all you can think of is like, well, okay, the first movie did this so much better, as did the second one. And so, yeah, and then, again, like when the gates of hell are unleashed, it really just gets ugly and nasty and not fun and gross and bleh.
So I was on board for a little while because this is very much an R-rated Hellboy. The previous two films have been PG-13. And so this, and I wrote this in my review for RogerEbert.com, this is like the Deadpoolization of Hellboy, because it really wallows in the raunch and the profanity and the graphic violence. And there's also even more of a cheeky kind of self-aware irreverence to this character than already existed. Like, it's really anachronistic, and just the language and it knows it's goofy and it's playing with that. And that's fun for a while. When it's funny, it works. Like off the top, how they're playing with King Arthur's role in this flashback off the top. It's like, yeah, that King Arthur. So it knows it's a movie and it's playing with your expectations, and then it just gets like overbearingly like bombastic and cacophonous, and that would be okay if the action sequences were, you know, choreographed and staged and cut with some verve, some elegance. It's just like choppy and noisy, and then you have something like Motley Crue Kickstart My Heart playing in the background, and it's a mess. It's a total mess. And it's so long. It's so long, and it keeps not ending. And then the eventual ending suggests that this is, you know, optimistically the beginning of a franchise, because the thing you see at the very, very end suggests where it's going to go.
Right.
And I think that's not going to happen. David Harbour has a really interesting presence about him. And he's done such, you know, intriguing character work for many, many years leading up to his role as Hopper in Stranger Things. And he's got this likable kind of gruff persona, which is a great fit. I mean, Ron Perlman's boots are tough to fill, but
Right.
he's got a great fit. He's got that look and that same kind of grizzled attitude. It's not his fault. Nothing here is his fault. He's doing the absolute best that he can with the material that he's given. But it takes all these detours and flashbacks and sidesteps and introduces all these plot lines and characters. And it's meant to be ridiculous, but it's like, if you're ridiculous and you know you're ridiculous, that does not necessarily make the ridiculousness work. And that's what's happening here, the excess of it all. Yeah.
I didn't see it.
Good for you.
Good, you're lucky.
But
William Bibiani reviewed it for me at TheWrap, and he loved it. And I feel for him being in the minority, because I did not care for Hellboy 2: The Golden Army.
I liked Hellboy 2.
And I got a lot of, and I'm sure if I were to not like that movie today, the internet pushback I would have gotten would be much worse. But yeah, a lot of people are like, meh, 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 how dare you, meh.
so do you like the Hellboy character?
Yeah, I do. I've read some of the comics. I think they were entertaining. I liked the first Hellboy movie. I didn't care for the second one. And because I didn't care for the second one, I'm not super precious about the idea of, oh, they got rid of Del Toro. So, but I haven't seen this one, so I can't speak to it.
The thing that's really missing with Del Toro's signature touch, right, is that balance of like the weird and the whimsical, and the eye for detail for every, you know, giant monster and tiny little bitty fairy,
Right.
and a sense of like love and affection for this world that does not exist here. There's just like, it's just angry and messy instead.
Well, and I feel like, especially with the Hellboy, and you see it's similar to what he does, you know, especially in Pan's Labyrinth, where there's this almost, you know, kind of, you know, I use romantic in the way that like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is a romantic story, right? Like there's a romantic element to it that also allows, especially in the first two Hellboy movies, Del Toro to practice a level of restraint that I actually think is in line with the comics, because at least the original Mignola art, like it's all, his comics, his art is I don't want to say sparing, but it's so stylized, and the color is used in such a way that, like, sure, people get, you know, you'll see things like what would otherwise be really gory is done in a stylized way that's a little bit easier to stomach, so to speak.
This is so gory.
This, especially at the end, and like that end stuff that they were doing, you know, it was similar to, like, there's just this nasty mean-spiritedness to it that. Also, can we talk about the demon designs that were coming in? And is it me, or did one of those like look like lady parts on legs?
It looks like a giant, not just lady parts, but like vagina dentata on legs.
Like breathing fire.
Right.
And it was like, that's okay.
And then right around that point in the movie too, one of his people get torn apart in a million bloody ways. One person, like, they take this person's legs and like split them open upside down.
Right. And there's another like couple of flying demons that split some woman apart. And it's just all this stuff that's like, it felt like, okay, let's just be gross just for gross sake, right? And look, like, I may have my own elements of squeamishness around certain films and certain things you see, but this doesn't really do anything to drive the story. Like, there's no point to it aside from just being gross, right? And then the other part of it too is, you know, the effect of showing people talking from beyond the grave.
Oh yeah.
Like it was
weird.
It was what was also just like laughable. Like there's these points at the end, like during the climax, you're what's supposed to be these emotional moments, like half the audience is just cackling. And I'm pretty sure that wasn't intentional.
Yeah, and it's sort of an interesting trick the first time they do it, but then the second time they do it in that setting, it's like, really? Now? I found myself just looking at the screen and going, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was just
over
like
and over again, but not with a sense of appreciation, but like, okay, we're going to these extremes now. And then in the middle of it, it's still trying to be kind of jokey. Like it's really incredibly graphically violent, and then it's still trying to be jokey. And a lot of the lines that David Harbour is stuck with are just such groaners. There is one toward the end that like I saw the punchline coming and I'm like, oh no. Oh, no. We're not going to do that, are we? And he does.
Yeah.
So I don't want to ruin it for you.
Yeah.
It's a gem.
No,
but
and that's the thing.
terrible.
Like, you see that level of gore in the Deadpool movies, but those have enough sharp jokes in them that it works. Like, vintage Sam Raimi pulls that off real well.
Right. Like Drag Me to Hell is like
right.
that.
But I mean, like Evil Dead 2 is
Yeah.
like that, right?
If the writing is there, it can pull it off. And I feel like stylistically, too, if the action sequences are put together better, then that kind of creates a whole world that we're okay with. And like it's simultaneously not all that funny eventually and like not very well made.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of terrible.
Yeah,
and I walked, it's so overwhelming though. Like it just adds so much stuff on top of stuff that I walked out of it going, I can't decide if this is awesome or terrible. And eventually I realized that it was the latter.
Yeah, I think if it was 30 minutes shorter,
long.
it would have been a lot. It would have been a lot different.
It's 2 hours long.
It's too much.
Yeah.
Like it's just too much. And look, there's gonna be fans out there who are like, oh, you guys, whatever. If you can't see past gore and you, God forbid, you want a story or writing or quality, God help you.
So I'm saying 3.
Wow, I liked it more than you. 3.5.
Just barely. It's at 13%. For a long time, it was at 9.
El Nueve.
Yeah, so now it is at 13. It's just
Lucky
not
13.
It's just not good. And I can't imagine from here that they really do go on to make more Hellboys. Hellsboy? Is it like Attorneys General?
Why not Hellman?
Anyway, 13%. Please avoid Hellboy.
So that's a 3.3 from us, or from them, rather. Thanks for watching here on YouTube. Please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and check us out on all the podcast places. You can also follow us at BeFastAllDay on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Thanks for watching.
Bye.